Narcissistic abuse can have profound and lasting effects on an individual's behavior and psyche, often leading them to develop people-pleasing tendencies. Here are some key reasons why this happens. Number 1. Conditioning for approval. Ever wondered why some people are always seeking approval? Victims of narcissistic abuse often develop a strong need for approval and validation from others. In abusive relationships, their sense of worth becomes closely tied to meeting the demands and expectations of the narcissist. This conditioning starts early, with the abuser making their approval the yardstick for the victim's value. Even after the abusive relationship ends, this need for external validation can persist. Victims may continue to seek approval from others, believing their worth depends on meeting expectations. This behavior is a survival strategy learned in response to the abusive dynamics. It becomes a habitual pattern, shaping how they interact with others long after the abuse has ended. Understanding this need for approval is crucial for both survivors and those supporting them. It highlights the deep impact of narcissistic abuse on an individual's self-esteem and identity. Helping survivors recognize this conditioning can aid in their healing journey, encouraging them to rebuild their sense of self-worth independently of others' opinions. Number 2. Fear of rejection and confrontation. Do you know why some people avoid conflicts or expressing their needs? Individuals who have survived narcissistic abuse often develop an intense fear of rejection and confrontation. This fear stems from past experiences where asserting their needs led to adverse outcomes, such as further abuse or rejection. As a result, they may avoid asserting their own needs and preferences to maintain harmony and avoid conflict. This behavior is a survival mechanism learned from navigating abusive relationships. Survivors prioritize others' needs over their own to prevent risking disapproval or conflict. This fear of rejection and confrontation can persist even after the abusive relationship ends, affecting how they interact with others in various aspects of their life. Understanding this fear is crucial in supporting survivors of narcissistic abuse. It underscores the impact of trauma on their ability to assert boundaries and advocate for themselves. Helping survivors overcome this fear involves rebuilding their confidence and teaching them healthy ways to assert their needs without fear of reprisal. Number 3. Low self-esteem and self-doubt. Ever wondered why some people doubt themselves so much? Narcissistic abuse often leaves survivors with low self-esteem and self-doubt. This kind of abuse systematically undermines their confidence and sense of worth. Victims may constantly question their own judgment and abilities, unsure of themselves due to the constant criticism and invalidation they experienced. As a result, they may seek external validation and reassurance from others to feel validated and worthy. This seeking of external validation can manifest in people-pleasing behaviors, where they prioritize others' approval over their own needs and desires. Even after the abusive relationship ends, these feelings of self-doubt and low self-esteem can persist, affecting their relationships and decision-making. Understanding the impact of narcissistic abuse on self-esteem is crucial for both survivors and those supporting them. It sheds light on why survivors may struggle with asserting themselves and making decisions independently. Supporting survivors involves helping them rebuild their self-esteem and confidence, fostering a sense of self-worth that is independent of external validation. Number 4. Guilt and obligation. Ever wondered why some people feel overly responsible for others' happiness? In cases of narcissistic abuse, abusers often manipulate their victims into believing they are responsible for the abuser's happiness or well-being. This manipulation creates a deep sense of guilt and obligation in the victim. They feel compelled to prioritize the needs and desires of others, even at the expense of their own well-being. This pattern of behavior doesn't end with the abusive relationship. It can carry over into other relationships where individuals continue to place others' needs above their own. The guilt and obligation stem from a learned behavior of constantly trying to meet unrealistic expectations and demands set by the abuser. Survivors may struggle to recognize and assert their own needs, fearing they will disappoint or upset others. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for supporting survivors of narcissistic abuse. It highlights how manipulation and emotional coercion can deeply impact an individual's sense of responsibility and self-worth. Helping survivors break free from this cycle involves validating their own needs and boundaries and encouraging them to prioritize their own well-being without guilt or fear of reprisal. Number 5. Seeking security and safety. Ever wondered why some people always try to please others? People-pleasing behaviors often stem from a subconscious need to feel safe and secure in relationships. For individuals who have experienced narcissistic abuse, constantly seeking to please others becomes a way to avoid conflict or abandonment. In abusive relationships, conflicts and disagreements may have led to severe consequences or emotional turmoil. As a result, survivors learn that prioritizing others' needs can help maintain a sense of harmony and prevent further harm. This behavior becomes ingrained as a survival mechanism, even after the abusive relationship ends. Survivors may continue to prioritize others' happiness and avoid asserting their own needs to safeguard against conflict or rejection. Understanding this subconscious desire for safety and security is essential for supporting survivors. It highlights how past experiences of abuse can shape current behaviors in relationships. Helping survivors of narcissistic abuse involves empowering them to set boundaries and assert their needs confidently, while also fostering environments where they feel safe expressing themselves without fear of repercussion. Number 6. Difficulty setting boundaries. Ever wondered why setting boundaries can be so hard for some people? Victims of narcissistic abuse often find it challenging to establish and uphold healthy boundaries. In abusive relationships, asserting boundaries could trigger retaliation or escalate the abuse. Consequently, survivors may learn to prioritize others' needs over their own to avoid conflict and maintain superficial harmony. This pattern of behavior becomes a coping mechanism to navigate the abusive dynamics. Even after leaving the abusive relationship, survivors may continue to struggle with setting boundaries in fear of negative consequences. This difficulty stems from a deep-seated fear of rejection, conflict, or further abuse. Understanding this struggle is crucial for supporting survivors of narcissistic abuse. It underscores the impact of trauma on their ability to assert themselves and protect their well-being. Helping survivors regain control over their boundaries involves empowering them to recognize their own needs and rights and providing tools to establish healthy boundaries confidently and effectively in all relationships. Number 7. Validation and identity. Ever wondered why some people seek validation from others so intensely? Individuals who have endured narcissistic abuse often have their sense of self deeply undermined or invalidated by their abuser. Seeking validation through people-pleasing behaviors becomes a way to rebuild a fragile sense of identity and self-worth. This validation-seeking behavior, however, is unsustainable and can perpetuate a cycle of dependence on others' approval. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for both survivors of narcissistic abuse and those who support them. It sheds light on why survivors may struggle with self-esteem and assertiveness in relationships. Healing from narcissistic abuse requires acknowledging these patterns and their origins and actively working to rebuild self-esteem. This process involves fostering a sense of self-worth, independent of external validation, and learning healthier ways to engage in relationships based on mutual respect and genuine connection. Supporting survivors in this journey means providing validation, empathy, and tools for developing assertiveness and setting boundaries. It also means promoting environments where survivors feel safe, expressing their needs and asserting their identities without fear of judgment or reprisal. By understanding these dynamics and supporting healing, we can empower survivors to reclaim their sense of self and build fulfilling, healthy relationships moving forward.